Be with y'all in a second. JDR News Live, November 5th. Start. Give me just a second here. We'll get it rolling.
Human brain is made for thinking, not pubic experiment. It's hardly a tinker toy or experimenting. Not pubic with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is a source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel close
Sure to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to the John Doe Radio Show. John Doe hanging out with you. Hold on, give me a second here. Everything froze on me. Let's restart this, because that was ridiculous. Boop. So it's cool when you have the option of actually editing things. All right.
Human brain is made for thinking, not pubic experiment. It's hardly a tinker toy or experimenting. Not pubic with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is a source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel close
Sure to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to the John Doe Radio Show. Thank you very much for hanging out with us live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/John Doe Radio and you can hang out with us live Monday through Friday, starting at about 6 Mountain Time, wherever that is. Wherever you are, you're just going to have to do the math on that. I'd do it for you, but I don't know where you are. Thanks for hanging out with us. Today on John Doe Radio, we have some pretty big news stories, something that we've been following since the beginning. Mexican Supreme Court has ruled to open the doors to legalization, which is, once I read you the story and we start to go over this, it's going to blow your brain out of the water. It's absolutely mind-boggling how this has actually happened in Mexico, but very, very, very cool. So we'll get to that, have some analysis up and down, left and right with that. Obviously talk a little bit more about Ohio, give you some reasons why Ohio failed and possibly a little different spin on things. Also, police say marijuana is the least of their worries and the world's first cannabis tax funded by, or the first, world's first cannabis tax funded scholarship. Holy guacamole, spit it out. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day wherever it is that you are residing today here in the Mile High. I think it was the first taste of winter that we actually had in Denver. A little bit of small flakes. Last night, it was absolutely insane. I have never seen it rain like it did really this late in the season here in Colorado. I don't know. That may be weird to say for you outside of this state. Maybe you get rain, heavy rain all the time. The western side of the United States, in California, your rain season's going crazy right now. Anyway, there was hail. It was lightning like crazy, and it was so many clouds that the lightning was kind of inside the clouds and going across the sky. Super beautiful, super awesome, but super crazy. So if you are relocating here to Colorado, one thing I would suggest, be prepared for just the craziest weather that you've ever seen, really, when it comes down to it. I couldn't believe it. It was really cool to watch. Not fun getting to the industry party that I went to last night, because there was so much damn rain. Huge puddles in the middle of the highway. You hit these puddles and your car starts to go sideways on you, or just stops. Windshield wipers couldn't go fast enough for this. Anyway, fun times here in Colorado. I'm sure we'll be bitching here a couple weeks when the snow starts hitting, wishing for it to be summer again. My favorite night of the year, the first time that we get a snowstorm here in Colorado, always seems, and it's probably like that in other places, always seems like the most relaxing, beautiful evening of the year to me. I don't know why. You walk outside, just beautiful, quiet, snow's falling everywhere. Take in a deep breath, nice, frozen, fresh air. It's beautiful. It really is. Thanks to everybody that makes the John Doe Radio Show possible. None can be thanked more than the JDR Army. And for you that are signing on to the JDR Army, brand new, or if you're old JDR Army, thank you for hanging out with us. Couldn't do this without you. It would literally be me here talking by myself, which would get kind of lame. I probably would still enjoy it. But with you, makes it not weird or something I could be thrown into the loony bin for. Plenty of other reasons I'm sure that I could, but having you here is fantastic. Big thanks to our sponsors here on the John Doe Radio Show. Finalizing a couple sponsors to be added to the mix. Our good friends from Ajoya, and possibly one other one that I'm kind of keeping on the wraps right now. But big thanks to USA Cannabis Consulting. USACannabisConsulting.com. If you need help navigating the cannabis industry, which who doesn't, make sure you holler at them, USACannabisCompany.com. Not only just through licensing, but also building your cannabis business out, whether it's branding, actual construction, or advice. They can take care of you. Holler at them. Tell them Kyle Allen Toronto, Kyle Allen, that JDR sent you, John Doe, Michael Hawley, Brambo, whoever it is, just drop the JDR family name and they'll help take care of you. Weedbiz.net, the reason why you're listening to us right now, if you're not listening to us live, is because of Weedbiz.net. I just need to slow down. This is another one of those stony situations. I'm feeling like I can better enunciate today, though, as opposed to yesterday. Big thanks to Weedbiz.net. We love them. Like I said, we wouldn't be able to put our show on air for you to listen to on our website, johndorad.io, which is where you can get any of our recorded shows, whether it be audio, links to YouTube, watch us live link from our website. Head to it, johndorad.io. Weedbiz.net also has news from the South on their website, so if you'd like to keep up with a little bit more news, find yourself another spot, another source for that news, head to weedbiz.net. They also have some pretty badass grow pods available there also. Like I've said before, not jank, not something super glued together, not something duct taped together, Gorilla Glued. Not that Gorilla Glue. All right, we've made that joke multiple times. I say we put that one to rest. And make sure you check out Handmade Apparel, Mogul Printing, everybody else who's supported us through the years. We really do appreciate you a ton. It's all right. And as always, if you're live in our chat room Monday through Friday, 6 Mountain Time, if you got anything to say, go ahead and drop it in that chat. Comments, questions, whatever it is, we'll take care of you. Slowly trying to get that chat to grow. So if you get a chance, pass us along. Puff, puff, pass. Post it up on your webpage, Facebook page, whatever it is that you do. All right, let's get to some news stories here. By the way, I was following this. This is really nothing to do with marijuana, but just cool in general. There was this dude who has horrible terminal cancer. Basically, his lungs are completely filled with cancerous tumors. And one of his biggest wishes before he died was to get to see the brand new Star Wars movie that comes out in December. Doctors 2 months ago gave him 2 months to live. He's still standing. I gotta admit, looks like he's dying. If you look at previous pictures from him before and the pictures now, the kind of story that kind of brings tear to your eyes. And I haven't seen the movie, but everybody tells me it's the exact same story as the movie Fanboys. But this guy, his only wish was to see the last Star Wars movie. Well, yesterday, Universal Studios, or who was it? Who owns Star Wars? I know J.J. Abrams called him right before they hooked Star Wars up to his TV from one of the movie company's modules or whatever. Were like, had a bunch of security around, probably sweep the room for bugs. And showed this guy this Star Wars film, the brand new one that happens in December. So I thought that was a fantastic story. It goes without saying that cancer is one of the worst things in the entire world that you can face or that you can watch a family member or a loved one go through. There's just absolutely no words to describe the feeling that you have watching someone die. And every single one of us has been affected by someone dying from cancer or having cancer, having to battle through it. And whether you believe that cannabis is the cure or you believe that cannabis could lead to a cure, whatever it is, the bottom line is it's such a horrible, ridiculous roll of the dice with life. The way that we treat cancer nowadays, the fact that we can't figure out exactly why cancer happens, why those cells split the way that they do and mutate the way that they do. Just a few little, I say little, but it's not little, just a few steps that we don't understand. And if we could just actually understand why it does that, we might be able to fix it. Anyway, it's super awesome that this guy, 32 years old, got to see the brand new Star Wars already. He said he loved it. That's about all he can say, though. I'm sure they made him sign, or his wife sign, 1 million contracts. I won't go into it. I'm not going to say what I was thinking. That would be just rude. Keep it on a high note. Positive. The Mexican Supreme Court on Wednesday ruled to allow a small group of recreational marijuana users to legally use their drug. We got lost there. Opening the door to nationwide legalization and a potential new front on the war on drugs whose violence has devastated the country, the 4-1 decision allows 4 representatives of a group to plant, transport, and smoke marijuana for recreational use, and declared unconstitutional 5 articles of the Health Act that banned the use and cultivation of the drug. The group, known as SMART by its Spanish acronym, argued before the court that the current drug policies have been ineffective and regressive, and it also interferes with private lives of individuals. The group also argued that there is no evidence that regulation of legalized pot would increase drug usage with the plant and increase violence. In fact, the opposite may occur, the group argued. The court ruling, which applies only to the 4 individuals seeking protection, said the prohibition of recreational marijuana can affect personal freedom. Those individuals are Josefina Ricaño, Armando Santa Cruz, Jose Pablo, and Juan Francisco Torres Landa Rufo. Haha! Epic name for an epic decision. Juan Francisco Torres Landa Rufo. All of the Sociedad Mexicana de Autoconsumo Responsible y Tolerante. As you can tell, my Spanish is flawless. Or SMART, or the Mexican Society of Responsible and Tolerant Consumption, if you're a gringo like me. I mean, did you hear what I just said beyond my stumbles and in enunciations? What they've done here is allowed 4 citizens of Mexico, the Supreme Court has, the ability to use cannabis, not medicinally. Nothing in here about medicinal cannabis, but their right to use it recreationally. Period. End of story. Now, here's the problem is, before we even get into this deeper and talk about it deeper, the first thing that you would think of when you would think of that is like, well, then why isn't it everybody not being allowed to use cannabis? It wasn't granted the right to cannabis use. That you're exactly right there. In my opinion, what is stopping Mexico now from legalizing cannabis? Period. End of story across the board. This is absolutely crazy. And crazy in a good way. It's just a so far out of left field type decision that it's kind of hard to comprehend when you sit down to think about it. But holds incredible promise for that country to be able to flip the switch on its drug war. If you do away with cannabis prohibition, it's gonna take so much of the dump of money from not only the drug cartels there in Mexico, but if we were to do it here in the United States, as we said before here on the show, and I've said and pushed, is that if you take out that rung in the ladder with cannabis, it's such a massive help to the step up. It's like the second rung can't be reached, and you gotta have that marijuana rung in there to be able to support you, to be able to give you money, to keep your organizations going, to be able to bust people indiscriminately. Every 42 seconds, a cannabis user is arrested or ticketed. If we can get rid of that, it may not be the complete end of the drug war as they hoped, but over time, it's just going to completely disable it. Limping, and then being shot to death, executed as it should, instead of it executing every single one of us. So this is just awesome, incredible news. This is why I've been following this so closely here on JDR this past week, because it's such a big story. It's something that Mexico, nobody thought would happen in Mexico, at least for not a long time. The group also argued that there's no evidence that regulation of legalized pot would increase drug use and violence. In fact, the opposite may occur. We already said that. In the court ruling, which applies, we already said that. I usually scroll to the page and then cut off the top of the page, cut off the story at the top of the page where I've left off. Failed to do that. I got too excited about the story. The Supreme Court ruling sets a precedent and puts the issue before the legislative and executive branches for further study, says Lisa Sanchez, director of the non-governmental organization Mexico United Against Crime, which members helped form SMART. The ruling shows there exists an excessive, intrusive, and unnecessary prohibition against recreational marijuana. Sad. Sometimes I kind of wish I had like Duke Nukem to do voiceovers here on the show. He killed him dead. Hooah! If you never played old Duke Nukem, then you may not know exactly what I'm talking about, but to a few of you, that might have been funny. The ruling shows there exists an excessive, intrusive, and unnecessary prohibition against recreational marijuana. Just said that. It's a paradigm shift with newly expanded liberties and rights. President Enrique Peña Nieto has opposed the legalization of drugs. His country has waged war against drugs and drug-dealing cartels that have left tens of thousands of people dead or missing. The United States has long backed the Mexican government's battle against drug cartels, whose illegal product ends up for sale and consumption in American streets. But on Wednesday, the Mexican president took to Twitter saying he respected and recognized the court's decision on recreational marijuana and added the court ruling opens a debate on what is the best form of regulation to inhibit drug use. He said, quote, Mexico has promoted in international forums, including the UN, a broad discussion to address the global change of drugs. Obviously said it in Spanish, so I'm glad that big thanks to CNN for somebody on their staff translating that for me. Otherwise, we would have been pretty lost. Sorry. The captain of the boat steering you wide. Mexico recently decriminalized possession of up to 5 grams of marijuana and a half gram of cocaine, but their production and distribution has remained illegal. The U.S.-based Drug Policy Alliance, which asserts the drug war does more harm than good, called the Mexican court ruling a landmark case that could lead to the legalization of marijuana in Mexico if legislation is passed. The vote by Mexico's Supreme Court is extraordinary for 2 reasons. It's being argued on human rights grounds and is taking place in one of the countries that has suffered the most from the war on drugs, says Hannah Hetzer, Senior Policy Manager at the Alliance. According to the Alliance, Uruguay became the first country in the world to legally regulate marijuana in December of 2013, and Canada's new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and his Liberal Party have promised to legalize the good green. Medical marijuana legalization bills are being debated in Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Mexico, says the group. That's fantastic news. So we'll obviously keep our eyes on that and follow as this moves forward. And as we mentioned before, one of the biggest reasons why, or one of the biggest reasons that could lead to this not being pursued faster is obviously because of these horrible drug cartels in Mexico putting targets on the backs of anybody who promotes something that would get in the middle of their business. They don't want to lose money. All that legalization is going to do is divert funds from their cartels to actually creating an upstanding, functioning, brand new system. I was going to say industry there, but this could change everything in Mexico. Absolutely could. Stems off everything we were talking off before about how the drug war would be crippled if it lost the marijuana funds that go into it, that everybody relies on. What the hell is this? We've had a slow bed show today, but we got to get rid of that one. That one was horrible. Last night when I went to this industry party, something to note about here. Usually this type of commentary would be left to the long JDR shows where we could get some feedback from Bike and the rolling of his eyes and him puking in the corner about having to spend any time at some sort of industry party like this. Glass, the only thing that drew him out to go see Champs. That's the only reason why he at all made the effort to get down there is because Glass, beautiful, beautiful Glass. Industry event, Industry get-together and party, Oh, shit, I almost forgot. What the fuck am I thinking? Jeebus. Bike has been nominated for a 2015 Cannabis Business Award as an MVP. Not as an MVP, as the MVP. Now, he's with a long list of some great people. Fuck, I almost forgot about that. Jeez, man, all you 20 minutes into the show, man. That's super exciting news. So if you get a chance, head to his web, why am I considering Facebook? Head to his website. Go to his Facebook page and troll the shiz out of him. I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty sweet that a bunch of people would nominate him, because it probably had to be more than one to get on the ballot. I don't know. Anyway, the 2015 Cannabis Business Awards, a growing award ceremony that's gaining more and more momentum and more legitimacy every year that it's out there. As you know, like, award shows a lot of the time, especially with what we do, have to kind of build steam, gain the confidence of the people. But the way you do that, you just keep doing it professionally. And granted, yes, this kind of does sometimes end up in a popularity contest. And really, I guess when it comes down to it, it is a popularity contest. Sorry, Chloe. Chloe at Cloverleaf University, one who started this all and put it together. I'm not trying to shiz on it at all. I'm just saying, obviously, it takes a large amount of people, a large amount of your peers and the public to recognize you to be in this and to not only just be in it, but to win it. And when Bike's attached to something, he's in it to win it. And we should have played this one on Halloween. The hell is this? Oh, it's called Halloween.
Cookies sold.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. We kill it. I don't know how to rap, so I'm not gonna try. Cause if I tried, I think I'd make you all sit and cry. I don't understand how these rappers rap today. It doesn't make any sense what they say and how they pray. That wasn't too bad. I'm just excited about bikes, so we had to take it off the chain a little bit there. If you're at all watching on YouTube, I might be turning a little red right now. Let's move on. You're like, I didn't come to this show today to listen to you fucking ramble and try and rap the white boy raps. God, I hope Black William Breeze was watching. Or if he's not, I'm going to send this to him. Be like, dude, I want to be involved in your underground rap battles. I want to be involved in these pit battles, homie. What up? All right, let's get to Omaha's legalization, or Ohio's legalization. What you talking about, Willis? More than 1 million votes were cast yesterday, day before yesterday, in Ohio for legal marijuana. But Issue 3, a ballot initiative that sought to legalize cannabis for all uses, was soundly defeated. When the polls closed, for the margin was almost 2-1 against. Ending marijuana possession enforcement wasn't enough. Stopping a discriminatory drug war policing wasn't enough. In the end, the establishment politicians of Ohio skillfully played things just right. In a brilliant strategy, they kept everyone's focus. Thus, a step forward for civil rights was thwarted by the almighty dollar. By the way, this is written by Chris Goldstein from Philly 420. He also used to do the original podcast for Normal's podcast. Chris Goldstein, you may remember if you've been around for a while. Or if you've been listening to podcasts for a while. He used to do regular terrestrial radio too, which is pretty cool. I do believe a lot of what he's saying to be my feelings. That's why we're reading it. Ohio state legislators even hedged their bet by placing a competing initiative, Issue 2, on the ballot to prevent legislation of legalization if it had won. Issue 2 passed by 52%. Words like oligopoly, monopoly. He wrote that. He did. It says oligopoly, monopoly. And cartel were the language of the issue. Repeated over and over to describe the 10 sites that would have been locked into a grow for the wholesale weed. Ohio business groups, trade associations, police, prosecutors, and the like found strange bedfellows with stoners and marijuana advocates in a frantic chorus against the perceived greed. Many who support legalization in general voted against Issue 3 or simply could not decide and sat out the election. The distaste that an exclusive group would make millions from legal marijuana stole the show. Completely upstaged were provisions from home cultivation and the end of criminal prosecutions. Even Washington State's recreational marijuana law prohibits personal growing. Today, commentators from across the spectrum are offering varying analysis of why Ohio came up short. A bad plan, no free market, poorly timed, low turnout. Those are common themes. The DPA, Drug Policy Alliance, and the Marijuana Policy Project, who stayed neutral on Issue 3, brushed off the loss, aiming for legalization initiatives in at least 5 states in 2016. Their claim is that Ohio was just a sad fluke, an imperfect way to change the laws. They offered an explanation for their neutrality, saying their fight is primarily for social justice in marijuana. They claim that regulated businesses, after legalization happens, are just a happy byproduct. Such an argument will be lost on the next person who goes to court in the Buckeye State for the felony charge of cultivating 4 plants that weigh more than 100 grams. It also has a bizarre tack for the reform groups who maintain close ties to the exclusive cannabis industry. Somehow, Ohio voters and many advocates were lured away from Issue 3 at the prospect that a pure open market for potential cannabis business owners can be achieved. Both DPA and MPP were cheerleaders of the restrictive medical campaigns that happened in New Jersey. Literally operating as a cartel, the New Jersey medical marijuana program has licensed just 6 facilities to serve the entire state. That's just 6 facilities. And this is not the only example for this. You can look across the board and see where legislation or votes have put in some sort of very restrictive monopoly, oligopoly, cartel, whatever you want to call it. It's put it in place with medical marijuana. It's there. Now, throughout medical marijuana reform, we've looked at some of the wins as not as good as other wins, or looked at some of the laws as good or bad laws, but not much has been really made about throwing a huge hissy fit for some of these laws. Now, granted, when they're fighting to get the laws in, and I know there's people out there, I know there's activists out there who do everything that they can to try and defeat these ridiculous laws, but there's not been as much uproar for those as there was for Ohio. But they still happen, and it's still something that's being put into place. So for people to sit here and say this is not something that we're ever going to put into place here in the United States, or this is not, whatever it is, it's already happening. And to trade off what some people would have gained monetarily for the harm that it could have caused for many of the people, if it would have been the harm that it would have taken away, it just outweighs all of the harm outweighs. God, I can't even. I'm so confused on this. All the bullshit that you considered with the oligopoly, in my opinion, is not something that outweighs the good that this situation could have caused. Not only for Ohio, but in other states. So, and then as much as I can argue that side of it, I mean, I'm never going to try and vote to keep people in jail. If we're going to be able to loosen cannabis laws, generally I'm going to vote positive on every single one of those. I can't see, even though we've seen in other states, and I just talked about the medical marijuana restrictions, there being only 6 providers in New Jersey and 4 providers in other states, and not even, just because that's happening, the thing with legalization, I think that we've got such a great taste, or maybe it'd be a bad taste in our mouth from these rules, that we're not going to let it happen with legalization. But I don't see, that's the problem though, is where's the difference between legalization and medical marijuana with these? Why does it become such a massive issue past medical marijuana when we're looking at legalization? Why can't some of these restrictive rules fly where you're at? If it's a good possibility you're not going to end up with anything at any point in time soon, and you do get a bone thrown at you, it seems the responsible decision to pick up the bone and accept it and say thank you. There is part of me, as I've explained, that doesn't like the idea of the whole monopolization of things, no matter what it is. But we're not talking about just anything here. We're talking about cannabis. We're talking about taking the grips and the fingers off of your neck. Beating the drug war across the board. It's not only Ohio that was struggling to get this passed, it's other states in that region who are also struggling to get that passed, and it just knocks out the feet from under them. Anyway, stop rambling there. Both DPA and MPP cheerleaders, the idea that the working class person can travel to, say, Colorado and break into the marijuana industry to then become a millionaire is a pipe dream, yet it maintains the same romance as poor prospectors striking it rich with oil or gold. The reality is that if you want to grow and sell some green buds, you already need to have access to greenbacks, a lot of them. All the regulated marijuana systems have expensive initial overhead and permit fees, thus entering the market for legal marijuana is a sport for the wealthy. Now there is a certainly money to be made, charging $300 to $400 an ounce for legal cannabis that costs about $100 an ounce or less to grow. Produces an assuredly healthy profit. The common 35 per gram, $980 an ounce for hash oil concentrate is even more lucrative. That's $980 an ounce. You can get good hash concentrate, good hash oil, BHO, from $600 to $1,200. That's an ounce of it. Industry leaders say there are prices that the market will bear, that those are prices that the market will bear, mainly because that's what consumers are used to paying underground. They also claim that the price is tied to risk, that the federal government could turn against them at any moment. The hefty margins are just another happy coincidence. The fact that existing industry and wealthy weed investors in other states were going to get cut out of expansion into Ohio was also the clear source of backlash. We're going to get a cut. A big, large cut. But at least the Ohio investors were up front. The medical and recreational cannabis folks in other states would rather pay closed-door politics for financial preference. There is nothing new in that, of course. It happens every day in the oil and gas industry, healthcare, and telecommunications, and the list goes on and on and on. The tax scheme in Ohio's Issue 3 is mainly what caused the political establishment to organize against the measure. Responsible Ohio, the group running the campaign, were unabashed in their attempt to keep potentially huge tax windfalls out of the hands of state legislators. Instead, the bulk of marijuana taxes would have gone directly back to county governments, which is another fantastic part about the law in Ohio, which plays into the part that you were going to have a facility, certain facilities open in every single county. A county couldn't opt out of it. You're like, yes, you got to open access here. So pushing that on them and then giving them all the benefits from them, having it reap all the benefits for that, it makes sense. Or most of the benefits, I should say. Absolutely makes sense to happen. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine told Cincinnati.com, as I traveled around the state, Ohioans think that very limited, narrowly targeted medical marijuana is appropriate. Just an example of how the medical marijuana situation has gotten acceptable for conservatives, for a lot of people across the board that normally weren't accepting of it, because the public has said, okay, it's okay, all right? It's overwhelmingly said that it's okay. And we are getting there with recreational marijuana. And hopefully just needed a few more dominoes to fall over to where we do get to that point to where some of these people are like, this is the responsible, reasonable thing to do. Also with Ohio having attached recreational and medical marijuana, I think that's something that other states should definitely look into in the future. And specifically with having the state's agencies and having the state's universities, whatever it is, study cannabis and drugs that can possibly be used to benefit people on the health side. So not just opening up access to patients and creating a special niche for patients. That's fine. I'm all for that. But mostly what I'm talking about here is opening up to research and having monies diverted to researching cannabis and its health benefits. That's huge in itself. Because then, not only are we moving forward with reform, but we're also moving forward with legit, quote unquote, and I say quote unquote, because a lot of people here in the United States don't recognize studies that haven't been done directly right next to them. If their neighbor didn't do the study, say it comes from England or it comes from Switzerland or it comes from Amsterdam, wherever it came from, especially when it comes to drugs, especially when it comes to cannabis, not something that's really followed or holds that much weight with us in America a lot of the time. Cannabis, one of the most studied drugs that's out there. Back to the story. So today, the status quo of marijuana prohibition is safe in Ohio. The entire cannabis market for recreational medicinal use will remain underground, tax-free. Tens of thousands of Ohioans will be cited and arrested in the coming years for doing something perfectly legal in other states. Racially biased enforcement in Ohio cities will continue. Chris Goldstein says his hope is that civil rights ideals of the marijuana reform movement will indeed be renewed. Advocating for one business model over another is not winning anyone any freedom. Once again, he's co-chair. Chris Goldstein is co-chair of Philly Normal. You can contact him, Chris at freedomisgreen.com. Chris at freedomisgreen.com. Say you disagree with that. You want to yell at him. The story that I was going on about before I got into Bike being nominated for the MVP of the Cannabis Business Awards was going to this industry event last night. I was super excited, got super stony. But as I was walking around, as I was seeing people, by the way, interesting that there was both quite a bit of smoking inside the event as there was an open bar. And one thing that I noticed, I did go to the bar, but I didn't go to the bar for alcohol. I went to the bar to go get a Pepsi. But as I looked around and saw how many people were actually there, not only how many different people were there, you know, from the wooks to the businessmen to whatever it is, all and everybody in between the spectrum. But as I'm looking around, I'm seeing that this open bar has literally no line to it. And a stark difference from a lot of other events that you go to say there'd be an open bar and everybody would just be crowded around the bar. I know last year when I went to the roofing company's Christmas party, it was in this huge center, kind of about the same size as City Hall was yesterday. Tons of employees. Maybe this just speaks towards the company I was working for, but no. This is regular across the board in America, I think, when it comes down to it. Your wedding, wherever you're at. Christmas parties with open bars, then there's usually people that are just hanging out by the bar or a million people in line at the bar to get free drinks. Just wasn't the case yesterday. So anyway, walked around, said hi to a bunch of really nice people, talked with Jay Daly, who does podcasting with Cannabis Radio Network, talked with Adam Blunt, who does Getting High With on Be Real TV. Hung out with those guys for a minute. And one thing that kind of hit me was, I feel out of place. I really did. I felt out of place at this party. The industry has just had so much change, has developed so much that, hardly anybody was really recognizable. And granted, these are people from all over the world. Not just people here in Colorado that we would hang out with on a normal basis or that we've hung out with at other events. I was familiar with a bunch of people, but it's just, I don't know what it was. Maybe I'll have to sit down with Mike and talk about it, and he can assess me like the psychologist that it is, figure out why it is that some of us don't feel in place at some of these events anymore. I don't know, is it because they become custy events? We're not custies? I don't know, that could be the case. Awesome, good times. Thanks for hanging out with us on the John Doe Radio Show, JDR News Live. If you are with us in the chat room, I haven't really seen anybody comment. Oh, Ryan Cooper. There we go. Open your eyes, bro. It has been a long week. stony long week. Trying to pry the eyes open. Did I already talk about the Edipure recall? Yes, we already talked about the Edipure recall yesterday on the John Doe Radio Show. 20,000 units of Edipure's products were recalled from stores. So you can go to the Department of Revenue's Marijuana Enforcement Division website. Just type in Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division recall into Google, and you'll be able to pull up all the recalls that have been taken back and figure out if you've got the products sitting on your front table or not. All right. 11 things Colorado can now fund thanks to legal marijuana. On Election Day in Colorado, voters had to decide whether they wanted $66 million in marijuana tax revenue to be returned to taxpayers and pot growers or let the state distribute the money for public services. With almost 70% of the vote, residents chose to let the state keep the money, basically, is what happened. So the tax return situation that I had talked to you guys about, which was a one-time only situation, is that when we went to go vote for legalization here in the state, the numbers that they presented to the people were wrong, undercalculated, which by the rules and laws in Tabor, the taxpayers' Bill of Rights here in Colorado, it was up to Colorado. The state either had to directly give back the funds right away, or they had to bring it to a vote of the people. Went to a vote of the people. People decided to let the state keep the money and continue to waste our taxes on just a bunch of bullshit. With almost 70% of the vote, I already mentioned that. That means the revenue for marijuana sales will go towards funding educational programs, school construction, and various other services in Colorado that voters eventually prioritize. Or evidently prioritize. Colorado legalized recreational marijuana in 2012, brought in more than $100 million in pot tax revenue in August alone. That's a 10% sales tax and 15% excise tax on recreational pot, but an accounting error almost forced the state to return that revenue. The Associated Press reported, so lawmakers crafted Proposition BB, is what we just talked about, and gave the money to the state. Number one, $40 million goes to school construction. Number two, $2.5 million for marijuana education and prevention campaigns. By the way, the $40 million for school construction, not going to go that far at all. I mean, when you sit down and you look at the numbers for what goes to each school, I mean, we're dealing with sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars for an operating budget for these school districts, and sometimes even for individual schools that are big enough. So the dent that just $40 million puts in is I don't know. I would have liked to have seen the state give back the funds and let the state of Colorado I don't know. The people of Colorado decided for themselves. They thought the state could handle it better than the $30 to $70 tax return that they would have got to put in their pockets. It would have been nice, though, to have those people be given a little bit of something, for our efforts. Whatever. $2.5 million for marijuana education and prevention campaigns. So that's basically anti-marijuana campaigns. $2 million for bullying prevention school grants. Number 4, $2 million for dropout prevention school grants. 5, $2 million for youth mentoring services. 6, $1 million for poison control centers. 7, $1 million for local government marijuana impact grants. 8, $500,000 for substance abuse screening, intervention, and referral. Basically giving money back to the state to be able to shove the people that are paying for it out of work. Number 9, substance abuse treatment. $500,000 goes towards that. Number 10, $300,000 for future Farmers of America and 4-H programs at the state fair. If your country, you know about that. By the way, going back to 9, $500,000 for substance abuse treatment. Are you kidding me? $500,000 is barely a raindrop in the bucket when it comes down to it. That's a joke. And 11, $200,000 for roadside impaired driving enforcement training for peace officers. So a good chunk of this money going back into punishing you. We won't dwell on it too much because there's not much we can do about it. And it's not like we haven't seen waste here in Colorado before, and why Colorado should have voted to give back the taxes. We talked about before, you may have seen before, Colorado putting these anti-marijuana rat cages out on the streets, basically telling people don't be a lab rat for cannabis legalization. And really is all that happened is that people started trolling the cages and posting pictures online of them being trapped in the cages, smoking in the cages. That was a pretty popular one. And these rat cages cost like $1 million each. Quote unquote, $1 million. Supposedly cost $1 million. They spent like $12 million on this campaign. It's absolutely ridiculous. Disgusting, really, when it comes down to it. So that's why I think a lot of people should have voted no against BP, voted to give back the taxes to Colorado residents, but it didn't happen, so here we are. We'll see as time goes on what that money's going to be put towards directly as far as what exact programs, etc., when it comes down to it. I'm sure we'll report on those because I'm sure it'll be some ridiculous fucking program. It's stupid and doesn't make any sense in the first place. Marijuana, the least worries for police. America's cops overwhelmingly did not see marijuana as a major threat to their communities, according to a result of a survey released this week as part of the DEA's 2015 National Drug Threat Assessment Summary. The DEA asked a nationally representative sample of over 1,000 law enforcement agencies what they saw as their biggest drug threats. Marijuana came in the bottom of the list, named by only 6% of survey respondents as the worst, or biggest threat, I should say. The share of law enforcement agencies naming pot has been declining since the mid-20s steadily, even as states have moved to legalize medical and recreational marijuana during that time period. By contrast, nearly three-quarters of police departments named heroin and meth as the top drug threats this year. The perceived threat of heroin has more than quadrupled since 2007, according to the survey, and after rising sharply from 2007 to 2013, the threat posed by prescription painkillers has subsided considerably in the past 2 years. The findings indicate a statement by law enforcement of a fact that marijuana policy experts or drug policy experts and researchers have known for a long time. Compared to other recreational substances, including alcohol, marijuana doesn't cause that much harm. It's probably even safer than many people think, and whether you're worried about potential harms to individuals or communities, marijuana is very low on the list of recreational substances that cause harm. The state and local police said marijuana is not a big driver of crime. Only 6% said that marijuana was the most serious driver of violent crime in communities in 2015, and 5% said it was the biggest contributor to property crime. This contradicts arguments made by some high-ranking law enforcement officers recently that marijuana is somehow driving an increase in murders this year. Despite this shift in thinking, arrests for marijuana possession continue unabated. Not unbaited. That could be, whoa, hey now. Cops keep arresting people for marijuana possession. This might be a simple question of low-hanging fruit. Marijuana is by far the most widely used illegal drug, and more users means more potential arrestees. But these arrests have serious consequences for the people caught up in them, and they divert precious police time and resources away from more serious crimes like rape and murder. Beyond that, the Department of Justice has continued to aggressively prosecute marijuana cases, even in places like California, where some use of the plant is legal. This led to a federal judge giving a scathing rebuke to the department last month, accusing it of openly defying congressional efforts to put an end to these raids. The DEA also continues to pump millions of dollars into its endless campaign to eradicate, quote-unquote, marijuana plants in the United States, funding expensive weeding operations that spend, in some cases, $60 or more to uproot a single marijuana plant. The DEA's latest drug threat assessment makes an implicit argument for smarter policing. Policing? I think you meant policing there. I did. I'm sorry. If marijuana is of little concern while heroin and meth are a big worry, then devote less time and resources to the former and more to the latter. A report notes that over 46,000 people died from drug overdoses in 2013. As we told you before, that the report, I think just a day ago, or the day before yesterday, I don't know. Obviously, that's a big highlight of the report. 46,000 people died from drug overdoses in 2013, which, when you think of that number, is surprisingly low. I mean, it's super high, but when you really think about it, that's pretty low. What it doesn't mention is that not a single one of those overdoses was caused by marijuana. Big thanks to the Washington Post for that article there. And I got a couple more stories here. We'll get one more news story and then one fun story. Indestructible Glass. We'll read that next. But first, the scholarship story. In this week's election, by the way, thanks to Time.com, Money and Family Finance section for this story. In this week's election in Pueblo, Colorado, voters were asked to weigh in on a number of proposals, with the exception of 2 issues, according to the Pueblo chieftain. All of them had something to do with marijuana. On one question, voters approved 5% excise tax on marijuana growers, which is expected to raise $3.5 million annually by 2020. Pueblo is a big spot where cannabis growers have moved down to kind of out of the way. Less restrictions have been had, even though now they're starting to pass these rules and laws. It just goes to show how many people have headed down to Pueblo to do this. Lots of big outdoor grows being talked about there. Possibly some of the biggest outdoor grows in Colorado. Hemp farms, stuff like that. Half of that money that's going to be raised will be paying for scholarships for local students who attend either one of the county's 2 public colleges. In other words, proceeds from the marijuana sales will be used to fund college scholarships. That's never happened before, and it's a concept that probably would have been laughed off as a total joke just a few years ago. This is the first time you have marijuana tax money being used directly for scholarships, said the Denver Post. County planners say perhaps 400 students will be awarded $1,000 each year thanks to pot tax scholarships, but the exact payout and number of recipients is going to be based on the number of applications. It's worth noting that while this is the first pot money to be used for scholarships, it's hardly the only way marijuana taxes are supporting education, as we talked about in previous stories. One of the arguments to make recreational marijuana legal in the first place is that sales would be heavily taxed and the taxes would help fund children's education. We just talked about the news report before today about how that $66 million extra is going to be kept in the pockets of the state, given to education, blah, blah, blah. Sweet, sweet, sweet news article from IFLscience.com. I farkin' love science.com. Japanese scientists invent Unbreakable Glass. The days of superheroes throwing a villain's henchmen through glass windows may be coming to an end. A team of scientists... Beautiful first line. A team of scientists from the University of Tokyo's Institute of Industrial Science has produced a new hybrid glass type which is strong as steel and near unbreakable. I swear to goodness, there's going to be glass collectors throughout the world that are going to be hoping and praying that this somehow makes it into the market. The pipe market. Oh, man. How many times have you broken a piece in your life? If you've never, ever broken a cannabis pipe in your life, it's probably because you use plastic pipes or metal pipes. Either that or you're just plain freakishly lucky or freakishly good. It could be that too. The new glass strength findings have been published in the journal Scientific Reports and described by its ability to be non-permanently deformed by external stress caused by something like a brick being thrown at it. This measure, which material scientists call the elastic modulus, for this new glass type is found to be comparable to that of steel. The glass has also been made to be incredibly hard, another measure of strength. Essentially, it is rather difficult to scratch the new material. Fantastic situation for mobile phones. This is no coincidence. The glass contains aluminum oxide components, which are renowned for their toughness. The AL203 version of the aluminum oxide group is actually the mineral corundum, a component that is second only to diamonds in the Mohs scale of hardness. Specific aluminum oxides are referred to as alumina mixtures, and although their remarkable properties have been known for some time now, the chemistry required to add them to glass has always proved difficult to put into practice. Whenever material scientists have previously tried to mix alumina with glass, they've always used a container. Unfortunately, the liquid mixture begins to crystallize out of the corners and edges of the container before it's had a chance to mingle properly with the glass. Liquids can only turn into solids if they have something to crystallize around, something called a nucleation point. Water can only turn into ice if there's a bubble or a solid particle to freeze around. To solve the alumina problem, the Japanese scientists leviated the mixture of glass and alumina into the air using oxygen gas, allowing it to successfully mingle in the absence of nucleation points. By melting the two substances together, using a carbon dioxide laser, I want one of those. Something tells me I wouldn't be a free man for too long if I had a carbon dioxide laser in my possession. Whoops, sorry about that. Just cut your car in half. My bad. The new 50% alumina glass was forged. The technique is known as aerodynamic levitation. It has been shown to produce perfectly transparent, thin, light, optically excellent glass. We are looking to commercialize the technique within 5 years. University of Tokyo Assistant Professor Atsunobu Masuno, a co-author of the paper, told this article's author. Anyway, this is nothing short of a huge sigh of relief for smartphone users, as I mentioned, whose inadvertent cracking of their touchscreen occurs too frequently. Quite bizarrely, this new material would mean that dropping a wine glass onto the floor could actually leave a crack in the marble tiles and not leaving you with that. That'd be awesome. You throw down the glass and it breaks your floor. What the fuck just happened? This is awesome. Glass skyscrapers could be made to be more resistant to natural disasters. Like plane flying into them proof. It's true. That's not just being an ass. It's true. Bounce off like a freaking ping pong ball. All right, I think that's going to do it for the show today. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here on the JDR. Thanks to the JDR Army for listening. Big thanks to the people that make this possible, the companies that make this possible. USACannabisconsulting.com, USACannabisconsulting.com, weedbiz.net. Good friends over at Mogul Printing, at Mogul Printing on Google. Look for them. And once again, obviously, you. Head to our website, JohnDoeRadio.com, No, don't go to JohnDoeRadio.com. You may end up with a Japanese hooker girlfriend if you go to JohnDoeRadio.com. Head to JohnDoeRad.io. That's a better site. Although, depending on what you're looking for, JohnDoeRadio.com could be the better site for you. All right. Have yourself a fantastic day, and we'll meet again tomorrow, Friday. We'll wrap up the week's news, review what we've talked about throughout the rest of the week, and get to news stories that happen tomorrow. Generally, Friday is a little bit of a slow news day when it comes to cannabis. News stories get released Saturday mornings, Sunday afternoon when it comes to cannabis. Really the news stories that people have tried to hold on to, business-type news stories, stuff like that. News stories like the Mexico one, other breaking news, that seems to get out immediately now. It's fantastic. It's the type of system that we've created, ladies and gentlemen. It's the movement forward. You used to be able to only get week-old news stories, things that happened long ago, or everything was absolutely buried in marijuana arrest news stories. No kidding you. When we first started JDR, when you're trying to look through the internet or Google for news stories, every single last one of them was a bust story. It was hard to find some of the stories that had a little bit more weight to them or a little bit more substance. We're changing, man. Keep it changing. Barry's... I was going to say something there. I'm not going to say it. Not only with the Mexico thing that we talked about today, but a bill being introduced yesterday to legalize cannabis basically take it out of federal ban by Mr. Bernie Sanders himself. The change is happening. The POTUS Club people that were operating the POTUS Club only being charged with 2 misdemeanors for selling weed. Having one of the charges for operating an illegal cannabis facility dropped because the prosecution wasn't ready. It's happening. It's changing. If you don't see it where you're at, trust me. All right. Have yourselves a fantastic day. Again, Mike will be with us on the long episodes that we do once we get in a brand new studio. These are just the JDR News live episodes. So if you are looking specifically for the bike man himself, by the way, go vote for him. Cannabis Business Awards 2015. Google that. Go vote for him. He's got to win it. He'll be back with us on the long form shows, harassing me, giving us info. I asked him if he wanted to come on today possibly and talk about what's happening at Champs, what he saw, what kind of glass, the prices, stuff like that, analyze it. We'll talk about that here in the near future with him. Have yourself a fantastic day until we meet again tomorrow. I'm Tim Martin. See you.
The John Doe Radio Show is produced by Charlie Stash Entertainment. The John Doe Radio Show programming is not limited to, but includes information and humor on counterculture subjects and is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. We specifically include responsible marijuana reform. Besides, listening to anyone but your mother is just plain stupid. We accept no responsibility for your actions or misrepresentations, and we do not fully endorse the use of illegal drugs. You are ultimately responsible for yourself.
Live.